The last thing he remembered from the battlefield was the sky burning. Not metaphorically. It was literally burning. A human fleet had clashed with alien warships above the fractured moon, and the atmosphere had filled with streaks of falling debris and flashes of weapons that looked suspiciously like angry miniature suns. Somewhere during the chaos, he had made the brilliant tactical decision to run toward cover. Unfortunately, the cover had exploded. Now he was being dragged through a hallway that was far too beautiful for someone who had recently been blown up. The corridor stretched endlessly ahead, its smooth metallic floor reflecting soft waves of blue light from panels embedded in the walls. The architecture curved upward in elegant arcs, like someone had asked an artist to design a palace, and then handed the construction job to a species that had access to unlimited anti-gravity technology. His boots scraped weakly against the floor as two armored alien guards held him by the arms. "Just out of curiosity," he muttered, wincing as pain shot through his shoulder. "Is this the part where I get dramatically interrogated, or the part where someone presses a glowing button and I explode?" What? The guards didn't respond. That was rude. He glanced sideways at them. Up close they looked less terrifying than they had on the battlefield. Their armor was sleek and seamless, faint lines of light moving across the surface like quiet electrical storms. Their helmets concealed their faces completely. He sighed. "Strong, silent type, huh? I get it. Very intimidating." His shoulder burned where the energy blade had sliced through his armor earlier. Every step sent another wave of pain through his arm. He was fairly certain the wound should not be glowing faintly. That felt medically incorrect. Ahead of them, enormous doors slowly parted with a low mechanical hum. The guards dragged him inside. He immediately stopped trying to be sarcastic. The chamber was enormous. Vast columns of shimmering crystal metal rose toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into a soft mist of floating lights. Platforms hovered in the air like suspended islands, each carrying figures dressed in elegant garments that shimmered like starlight. An entire alien court, and every single one of them was staring at him. "Well," he said quietly, "this is not awkward at all." The guards forced him to his knees at the center of the chamber. Pain flared through his shoulder again. He clenched his teeth but refused to make a sound. If he was about to be executed, he at least intended to maintain a small amount of dignity, or what remained of it. At the far end of the hall sat a throne carved from pale, luminous stone, and on that throne sat the alien queen. He blinked, then blinked again, because she looked human, mostly. Her face had the same delicate symmetry as a human woman, her posture calm and composed, her dark hair falling over shoulders draped in flowing silver fabric. But there was one unmistakable difference. Her ears were long, elegant, tapered slightly backward like something out of an ancient myth. For a moment he forgot about the pain entirely. "Huh," he whispered to himself. "Okay. Did not expect space elves." The guards stepped back. The queen rose from her throne. The entire chamber seemed to grow quieter as she walked forward, her steps slow and unhurried. The faint light of the chamber reflected softly across the floor as she approached. Her gaze never left him. He tried to sit up straighter despite the circumstances. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, deciding politeness was probably a good survival strategy. "Before this continues, I would just like to officially state that the explosion earlier was not my fault." What? No one laughed. He cleared his throat. "Tough crowd." The queen stopped directly in front of him. Up close, her eyes were sharp, intelligent, studying him with quiet curiosity rather than hostility. That alone made his brain slightly uncomfortable. Enemy leaders were supposed to glare dramatically, not look thoughtful. Her gaze moved slowly down to the wound on his shoulder. The torn armor, the scorched fabric, the faintly glowing cut beneath. She tilted her head slightly. Without warning, she knelt in front of him. That caused immediate chaos among the nobles behind her. Soft murmurs rippled through the chamber. He froze. He said slowly. "I feel like the queen kneeling in front of the captured enemy soldier might be against several royal protocols." She ignored the comment, her hand lifted. In her palm rested a small metallic device no larger than a coin. It activated with a quiet hum, releasing a soft blue light. Before he could react, she pressed it gently against his shoulder. The pain vanished instantly. Not faded. Not reduced, gone. A wave of warmth spread through his arm as the light pulsed once then again. The torn flesh sealed itself beneath the glow, skin knitting together as if time itself had reversed. His eyes widened. "Oh," he breathed. He rotated his shoulder cautiously. No pain, none. He stared at her in disbelief. "That," he said slowly, is the best medical treatment I have ever received. The blue light faded. The chamber had gone completely silent. The queen studied his face for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice calm and soft. You are mine now, human. The silence somehow became even heavier. He glanced around at the stunned alien nobles, then back at the queen. I feel like I missed a very important cultural explanation. Cold light slid across his eyelids. He opened them slowly and immediately regretted it. The ceiling above him was floating, not metaphorically. The entire ceiling consisted of several wide metallic plates hovering at different heights, drifting slowly in silent patterns like pieces of a puzzle that had forgotten what the final picture looked like. He blinked again. Okay, he muttered hoarsely. Either I'm still unconscious, or alien architecture has a very relaxed relationship with gravity. A soft tone sounded somewhere near the bed. The bed itself was suspiciously comfortable, too comfortable. The surface adjusted beneath him every time he shifted, as if tiny invisible engineers were constantly redesigning the mattress. He cautiously sat up. Nothing hurt. He flexed his shoulder once. Then again, still nothing. The wound that had been glowing and very concerning earlier was gone completely. Well, that's medically impressive, he said, also slightly terrifying. A panel in the wall slid open with a quiet hiss. 3 tall alien figures entered the chamber, dressed in elegant robes that shimmered faintly with moving patterns of light. Unlike the armored soldiers from earlier, these ones had uncovered faces and long ears. All 3 froze the moment they saw him sitting up. He raised a hand. Hello. The tallest of them stared at him with the expression of someone who had just discovered a dangerous animal calmly drinking tea in their living room. You are awake, the alien said carefully. Big fan of consciousness, he replied. I try to experience it at least once a day. None of them laughed. Again. He was beginning to suspect alien culture might not prioritize sarcasm. The second alien stepped forward slowly, holding a thin device shaped like a transparent tablet. Strange symbols flickered across its surface as it scanned him from head to toe. The device emitted several soft tones. The alien blinked in confusion. That should not be possible. Oh good, the human said. Doctors love saying that. The third alien finally spoke, their voice lower and more cautious. You were critically wounded. Yeah, he said, rolling his shoulder again just to admire the lack of pain. I remember that part vividly. The Queen personally treated your injury. Also remember that part. The 3 aliens exchanged a long, uncomfortable glance. The human watched them carefully. Let me guess, he said, that wasn't normal. The tallest alien straightened slightly. It was unprecedented. He nodded slowly. Right. So hypothetically speaking, when she said you are mine now, all 3 aliens stiffened immediately. That meant something important, didn't it? No one answered. The silence stretched long enough to become extremely suspicious. He pointed at them. See, that silence right there is the kind of silence people do right before explaining that I accidentally agreed to something legally binding. The alien with the scanning device lowered it slowly. In our civilization, they said carefully, the act of a sovereign personally healing an individual carries a sacred implication. He leaned back slightly. Sacred implication sounds expensive. It signifies a declaration of personal guardianship. He waited, that's it. The 3 aliens looked confused. That is not a small matter, the tallest one said. Sure, he said, but guardianship sounds manageable. Like a scholarship program. The second alien hesitated before continuing. The bond is not temporary. His smile faded slightly. How not temporary are we talking? The alien lifted a hand and tapped several glowing symbols into the tablet. A holographic projection appeared in the air between them. Ancient alien text spiraled slowly through the air like luminous ribbons. It is an oath recognized by imperial law. Okay, and by tradition, it is lifelong. He stared at the holographic text. Lifelong. Yes, he scratched the back of his head. Just checking, he said slowly. But did anyone ask the human involved in this lifelong agreement? The aliens exchanged another look. No. He sighed, that tracks. At that exact moment, the door behind them slid open again. The room instantly became very quiet. All 3 aliens stepped aside. The Queen entered. Her long ears angled slightly forward as her gaze settled directly on him. He looked at her, then at the 3 extremely nervous advisors. Then back at her. Well, he said, raising a hand slightly, good news, your medical technology works great. She studied him silently. And, he added carefully, bad news, I think I may have accidentally joined something. The palace had windows that showed entire planets. That was the first thing he noticed when the guards escorted him through the upper levels of the alien citadel. Not paintings, not holograms, actual planets. Through the enormous transparent walls, the black curve of space stretched endlessly, and far below the palace floated above a glowing world covered in swirling silver clouds. Massive orbital structures drifted slowly around the planet like silent guardians, their surfaces reflecting distant stars. He stopped walking. Okay, he said quietly. That is objectively cool. One of the guards gently nudged him forward. Right, walking, important. They continued along the corridor. The place was enormous. Hallways curved in impossible directions. Bridges of glowing glass crossed open chambers where floating platforms drifted like slow-moving islands, and everywhere he looked there were aliens watching him with intense curiosity. He waved at one group. They quickly pretended not to stare. Very subtle, he muttered. Eventually, they reached a large circular chamber filled with several tall figures dressed in elaborate robes. Their long ears marked them clearly as the same species as the queen, though each carried a slightly different posture, some stiff with authority, others tense with obvious concern. The guards stepped aside. The human remained standing awkwardly in the center. Well, he said, glancing around the room, I'm guessing this isn't the cafeteria. One of the robed aliens stepped forward. Their expression was careful, diplomatic. You have been summoned for clarification. That sounds ominous. The court must understand the implications of the Queen's decision. Ah, he said, so this is a meeting about my accidental royal adoption. Several of the advisors visibly flinched. That is not entirely inaccurate. He sighed and rubbed his forehead. You know, he said, back on Earth, when someone helps you medically, we usually just send them a thank you card. Before anyone could respond, the door behind them opened. The Queen entered. Every alien in the room straightened immediately. The human raised a hand. Hello again. She approached the center of the chamber calmly. Her long ears angled slightly backward as she studied the advisors gathered around them. You requested clarification, she said. One of the older advisors stepped forward. Your Majesty, the court must confirm whether the declaration was intentional. She tilted her head slightly. It was. Murmurs spread across the room. The advisor continued carefully. The human is an enemy combatant. The human raised a finger. Former enemy combatant, he corrected, currently unemployed. No one acknowledged the joke. The advisor continued. The tradition you invoked binds your authority to his protection. Yes, and by extension, another advisor added nervously, the stability of the empire may now be influenced by his existence. The human blinked. Wow, he said softly. That sounds like way too much responsibility for someone who lost a fight with a staircase earlier. The Queen's gaze shifted to him briefly. A staircase. Long story. Very slippery alien boots. A few of the younger attendants struggled not to react. The older advisor cleared his throat. Your Majesty, if the declaration remains valid, the human must remain under your personal protection. The human crossed his arms thoughtfully. Hypothetically, he said, what happens if someone tries to harm me? The advisor answered immediately. That would be considered a direct challenge to the throne. He slowly turned toward the Queen. You realize that makes my life extremely stressful, right? She studied him quietly. You survived a battlefield. Battlefields are simpler, he said. Everyone agrees they're dangerous. One of the advisors looked increasingly uneasy. There is another matter. The room became still. In ancient precedent, the advisor continued carefully, such a bond often develops beyond mere protection. The human narrowed his eyes slightly. I do not like where that sentence is going. The advisor hesitated. Historically, it has sometimes led to royal partnership. Silence fell across the chamber. The human stared at him, then slowly turned toward the Queen, then back to the advisor. Just to confirm, he said carefully, are you telling me that getting emergency medical treatment accidentally signed me up for alien marriage customs? No one answered. He rubbed his face with both hands. Unbelievable. After a long moment, he looked up again. I swear, he muttered, I should have just stayed on the exploding moon. The first week in the alien palace taught him 3 very important lessons. First, alien gravity fields changed slightly depending on the room, which meant he had tripped down the same staircase 3 times. Second, Alien nobles had absolutely no sense of humor. And third, being under the personal protection of an interstellar queen made everyone extremely nervous, especially him. He leaned against the balcony railing of a high palace terrace, staring out at the planet below. Silver storms drifted across the atmosphere, and dozens of orbital stations glowed like distant cities in the darkness. Behind him, two royal guards stood silently. They had followed him everywhere for days. He glanced back at them. "You know," he said, "back home we call this being babysat." Neither of them moved. "Still working on the humor thing, huh?" A soft set of footsteps approached. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The guards stepped aside immediately. The queen stopped beside him at the railing. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The stars moved slowly above the horizon. Finally, he sighed. "So," he said, "I've been thinking." "That is often beneficial," she replied calmly. "I'm serious. I assumed you were." He crossed his arms. "When you healed me, you didn't know who I was. I was just another enemy soldier." "Yes, and now apparently half your government thinks I'm a walking political disaster. That assessment is not entirely inaccurate." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, figured." He looked back out at space. "You could still undo this." Her long ears tilted slightly. "The declaration cannot be undone." "I mean unofficially," he said. "You could send me home, say the human recovered." "Everyone forgets about it." She studied him quietly. "You wish to leave." He hesitated. That answer should have been easy. It was. A few weeks ago, his entire world had been a military ship, endless orders, and a war that didn't seem to be ending anytime soon. Now he was standing on the balcony of an alien palace discussing interstellar politics with someone who ruled half a star system. Life was strange. "Well," he admitted slowly, "part of me definitely wants to stop accidentally violating royal customs every 5 minutes." "You adapt quickly." "Yesterday I tried to bow and salute at the same time." "Yes, I fell over. I witnessed this." He groaned and rubbed his face. "Great." The queen looked out at the distant stars. "When I healed you," she said quietly, "the court believed I was acting out of tradition." "You were." "No." He raised an eyebrow. "Then why did you?" She turned toward him. "You were wounded, surrounded by enemies, and still attempting to make jokes." "That's called coping. It is also called courage." He blinked. "That's a much nicer interpretation." Silence returned for a moment. Finally, he exhaled slowly. "You know what the weirdest part is?" "What?" "I came here expecting to die. And now," he looked around the vast palace. The guards, the glowing sky, the queen standing beside him. "Now I think I accidentally started a new life." Her expression softened slightly. "That possibility exists." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Okay, I'm going to say something extremely risky." She waited. "If this whole ancient bond thing really means what your advisors hinted at." "It does. Then maybe we should figure out what that actually looks like." The queen studied him for a long moment. "You are choosing to stay." "Let's call it a strategic decision." "Strategic." "Well," he added, "someone has to explain sarcasm to your empire." For the first time since they met, she laughed openly. The sound was soft but genuine. The guards glanced at each other in confusion. He leaned on the railing again. "You know," he said, watching the stars, "this is definitely not how I thought that battle would end." "No, I figured it would end with me running." "And now?" He looked at her. "Now I guess I'm staying." The queen's long ears tilted slightly forward. "Then the Empire will have much to learn about humans." He smiled faintly. "Oh, trust me," he said, "that goes both ways."